so fantastic words can't begin to describe it. You must see it with your own eyes to believe it. When the fly comes your way.
Hello, welcome to Cynic Critique, where we get real with cult films. I'm your host Brian, and I'm here with my brother and co-host, my bro-host, Thomas.
Hello.
Last week was a thing, but it wasn't a thing, it was The Blob, and now it's teleporting incidents with a fly. We discuss 1958's The Fly and 1986's The Fly.
Yeah, we do. Oh, yeah, we will.
Yes, we have.
No, we haven't.
But by the time the listener's listening, we will have.
Maybe.
Just dead air after that.
Yeah. So, The Fly, 1958.
Why did you kill him?
God, don't let it get out.
Directed by Kurt Newman. Written by James Clavell. Based on the short story by George Langeland.
Langeland.
And it was on a budget of... I'll read all the budgets I've found for this. So, you pick. It's multiple choice this week for budgets and gross for this one. Because I've got a budget which says $700,000. And then I've got another one that says between $325,000 and $495,000. And then I have a gross, which I think you've said it was from recordings in France 2008 or something.
So that's what Box Office Mojo had them from, yeah.
Yeah, and that says just $1,501.
Yeah.
But then Wikipedia had two grosses for this with 1.7 million and 3 million.
For worldwide? Or...
Yeah, worldwide gross. So that was multiple choice on Wikipedia.
I don't understand why Box Office Mojo doesn't have them figures, though.
I don't know. I'm really confused, to be fair. So like I said, multiple choice. You pick a number, I guess, and roll with it. Doesn't have to be one of the ones I said, I don't think, because there's just so many varying numbers there.
I'm going to make up my own then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
50p.
It was made on a budget of 50 pence, and it grossed 1,050 pences.
Yeah.
I work in 50 pences, not whole pounds.
I noticed. It's a strange choice.
I like the shape.
Anyway, I'll get on to cast.
Do you read the synopsis, sorry?
I usually do that after the cast, right. I think. Or do I do... You know what, I'll do synopsis and I seem to swap. Don't seem to matter. I'll do synopsis. A scientist has a horrific accident when he tries to use his newly invented teleportation device. I think you'll be saying something similar soon.
I'll have a bad case of deja vu.
That's just been our whole podcast for the past few weeks. Anyway, starring David Hedison, credited as Al Hedison on this one, as Andre Delambre, Patricia Owens as Helen Delambre, Vincent Price as Francois Delambre, Herbert Marshall as Inspector Charos. You want to start with thoughts, or...?
Yeah, I've got one important thought, because this was a rewatch for us.
Yeah.
My first thought is, shouldn't this be black and white? I thought this was black and white.
Yeah, I remember having the same thought. And then I guess you want to mention how a lot of people seem to have that sort of...
Yeah, but I'm assuming a lot of older people.
Yeah, because it says that they might just have seen it on black and white TVs. We're not really of that generation.
Yeah, I've got what they wrote in the trivia section from IMDb.
Yeah.
Apparently it's become an example of the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Which, do I need to explain the Mandela effect for listeners, or do you think they'll know?
If you want to explain it, you can.
It's a false memory amongst a collective of people, basically. It's become a cultural phenomenon named after the incident where they announced about Mandela dying, and everyone was like, I thought Mandela died.
Yeah.
Like, people, there was a whole load of people. I was one of them, because I'm pretty sure I remember our granddad telling us Nelson Mandela died in prison.
Yeah.
But they swear they'd seen this film in black and white and thought it was made in black and white, but The Fly was only ever filmed in and shown in colour. Strangely, the two sequels are black and white, which they think is where the confusion came from, or people may have watched it on black and white televisions, which were still common in the 80s as well. Well, that doesn't really add up for us, because we watched it within the last 10 years easy for the first time, I would say.
Earlier.
Yeah?
It'll have been near 2010, so that's more like 15 years.
Okay. So yeah, I don't think we have a particularly great excuse of why we think it's black and white. So I can only assume it's something to do with the filmmaking itself, and I'm curious if anyone else has watched it more recent and could have sworn it was black and white when they've returned to it.
Yeah, I think maybe...
Because we hadn't even seen the sequels.
No.
At that point, anyway.
Yeah, I also think maybe it's just to do with when you see pictures of it, sometimes they're in black and white.
Are they?
Some are, yeah.
Okay.
So maybe that's to do with it, but I don't know. Like you said, maybe just the fact it's an old film, the style of it. I really don't know.
That was my first initial thought, anyway, of this. Shouldn't this be black and white? I could have swore this was black and white. Yeah. My next thought is, God, Vincent Price is great in this. It might be my favourite of his films, which is odd because he's not the lead character.
No.
He kind of just bookends the film.
Yeah.
And I think it's this film and a couple of others around this time that ended up getting released that actually pushed him into the horror genre of like that staple, these are Vincent Price movies. And then he went on to do, I think, a lot of Roger Corman adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Which really solidified his status in the horror genre.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not the main performer in this. It's more Al Hedison, as he was credited as then, or David Hedison, who some people will probably recognise as Felix Leiter from a couple of Bond films.
Yeah.
I think he's in... Oh, I didn't write these down, so I could be wrong. I think License to Kill and You Only Live Twice.
Live and Let Die.
Oh, damn it.
License to Kill. He's the one.
I got half of them.
He's the one that returns from a Roger Moore one to Dalton.
Bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think he does a great performance because he's doing a lot without his face for some of this.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's the part where the incident's already happened and he's got like the towel or something over his head, hasn't he?
Yeah.
To hide.
Got a blanket over
and
his
he's
head.
kind of doing a lot with just his mannerisms, and I think that's a great understated performance.
Yeah.
And I honestly think Patricia Owens is doing quite an understated performance in this, but I think it's just part of that thing where Vincent Price is so magnetic.
I'm Vincent Price. Will everyone in the theatre hold on firmly to his seat, please?
He's got like a charm to him that makes him memorable. The way he talks and everything, it stands out in the film.
Yeah.
I think I was one of them as a kid. I thought Vincent Price was English.
Yeah.
He speaks very proper.
Yeah.
Which is quite rare for Americans, but it was more common in the 50s to speak like that, depending on what sort of character you were playing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I thought he was as well, to be fair.
It was only when I started watching more films and learnt more that I realised he was American, and I feel a little cheated. But no, Price is great in this.
But you said you preferred him in 60s Batman, yeah?
As Egghead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. 60s Batman will come up again, probably next week.
Yeah.
Yeah? Or is it for this? And I've not written it down.
I don't know. I don't remember seeing anything about 60s Batman while I was looking this up, other than thinking Vincent Price is in that as well.
I'll see.
I don't know.
Yeah, it will for
next week.
No, for this.
Oh, right.
Michael Rennie turned it down. He was offered the lead role,
right.
and he turned it down because his face would be covered up throughout the film for a lot of the production.
Yeah.
But he's famous for playing a doctor in Dracula versus Frankenstein in the 70s. I think it might be 1970, that film. He was in Subterfuge from the 60s. And he was Sandman in 2 episodes of Batman 66. And his very famous role is quite an early one. He's Klaatu in The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Right.
Where I'm pretty sure he had his head covered for most, if not all, of that film.
Well, maybe he just didn't want to do it again.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, that was an early role as well, so you want to get into the industry, don't you?
Yeah, I suppose.
Oddly, I don't think you read her out in the cast. I added her to my cast reading for this. Betty Lou Gerson.
Yeah.
Did you see who she is?
In this, yeah. But no, I didn't really look her up.
She's Nurse Anderson in this.
Yeah.
But she's quite famous for being the nun in Blues Brothers.
You know what? I thought you were going to say The Nun, as in
the recent... Of that horrible The Nun.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, she wasn't.
No. She's famous for the nun in Blues Brothers.
Right.
She's also the narrator in the 50s Disney adaptation of Cinderella.
Right.
And her most famous role, I would say, is Cruella de Vil in the 61's Disney adaptation of 101 Dalmatians.
Right.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Did you?
Well, more interesting than cool.
Yeah. I can see why I didn't really note it down. It's from stuff I don't really watch.
You also, I don't think you said about Charles Herbert being Philippe Delambre, did you?
No, I didn't.
He was quite a big actor.
Yeah.
Very prolific through the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And he's in an original of another film that gets adapted.
Yeah, 13 Ghosts.
Yeah. But I like a lot of this film.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first watched it, it was not what I expected.
No.
Because I'd already encountered the remake.
Yeah.
Which I think is phenomenal.
You expect a lot more.
So I expected more horror.
Right.
But this isn't so much a horror as it is this weird, almost like reverse murder mystery with some horror elements.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It is a bit of a mystery, but
like
at
the
the same
incident
time,
that's happened, the incident that's happened, it would work without the change of the fly anatomy.
Yeah.
And it's just sent him a little crazy, and she's been forced to murder him. And you've kind of got an episode of Columbo, right? You know what I mean? There's a very whodunit element to this, I think.
Now I really wish Columbo was in this, just to make it that bit better. I do like Columbo.
I also quite like this film.
Yeah.
There's like a strange humour to it for me anyway.
Yeah.
That I think it's to do with the era of filmmaking. I find myself laughing at unsolicited moments of comedy, I guess.
It's certain dialogue and performances where they haven't really worked out how to do it exactly, because some of the performances either come out too theatrically, sort of thing, like over the top, because they don't know how to express it as well.
Because the part that kills me in this is, I think it's when Price and Charras go into the lab and they look at that little dial that's got a 2 on it.
Oh.
And it's like, they killed Andre with a press. Look, at the stroke count, it reads 2. And it's like, okay, you could probably reset that.
Yeah.
You know, they could have killed him another way. And that still reads 2 from when it was last used. Also, that was a real press.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have actually been crushed by that thing.
Wow.
They had to rely on somebody with a remote to stop it off camera.
Wow.
And it does get quite close in the film, I think. Once you know it's a real press, you're thinking, oh, that's pretty close if that switch didn't work.
Yeah.
So the sense of panic of getting from under there is, I guess, quite real through that.
Yeah.
And Newman also wanted to work with Patricia Owens' real fear of insects with this.
Yeah.
He thought he'd use that to his benefit.
Yeah. So he didn't let her see the fly makeup, as they call it. As to me, they say
it's more
makeup,
of a prosthetic,
I
isn't
say
it?
more giant mask head thing.
Oddly, Hedison, who plays Andre, wanted to do makeup and have it progress throughout.
Yeah.
Which eventually is what apparently inspired the 80s one to be the way it is.
Producers apparently declined it, saying it was
costly, I think, as well.
Too costly, too time-consuming, and probably too harsh and grotesque for audiences, which Cronenberg really played on later, didn't he?
Yeah, greatly, I think. The other part I like when they go to the lab is when, I think it's Price that says this as well, about, well, there must be over $200,000 of equipment in here.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a bargain. $200,000 for a teleporting device? He's on about what should be in there, isn't he?
Yeah.
Because some of it's gone.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a lot now, I don't think, for the equipment that would be in there.
No. No.
And I can't remember how it came about now, but I wrote the line down because it just cracked me up, because I don't think you'd ever get a line like this, especially for a kid in a modern film. Philippe, the kid, he says, "She changed her mind. You know how women are."
Like, he should be a bit older to say something like that, I guess.
Yeah, like if it was a guy in his 40s and he's like pulling a cigar out his mouth to say it or something, that would fit that sort of line perfectly. But it's the fact it comes from this little 10-year-old or however old he's supposed to be, and it's like, wow. Like, imagine a 10-year-old saying that in a film now. It's rare you'd get a man to say it in a film now. And I just thought, that shows the era of this film. I also wrote something, and I'm sure you'll probably get it. So much for saving the cat, which is a writing device where you have your hero save the cat to show that they're a good person.
Yeah.
Or an animal or a kid, it can be anything, but it's a trope in writing known as saving the cat.
Yeah.
Because Andre shoves a cat in one of the teleporting chambers. In fact, I don't think they actually call them teleporters.
It's a disintegrator integrator, or there was another thing I found for it where it didn't say one of those words.
But the cat basically just disappears.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you just hear this like in the ether. But the cat, I believe, is relevant because it's in the short story.
Yes.
Which this is apparently quite accurate to. They made the ending happier, apparently.
Yeah. They wanted a happier ending, which you watch and you go like, well, at least they didn't go too happy, because when they say happy ending on this, I just assume they meant, can we have him survive?
Yeah. I just found it odd that it's like they chose to have a happier ending. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I quite like the conversation it has within it, I guess, about what murder is.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like a step up from the Frankenstein creation thing.
Yeah.
Because in Frankenstein, you get Frankenstein and his monster, and it's about the morality of life, and I guess fatherhood is in there as well.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it questions about what is life and what is murder.
Yeah.
There's a real good charm to this film.
I love it.
I mean, I don't like how she has to be put in her bed. Like, I'm pretty sure if she's going to be suffering with depression and stuff, you don't want her in a bed and whatnot. But I can't remember what line it is now. I'm guessing it's where she admits to essentially killing her husband.
Yeah.
Or what was her husband, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Because I've just wrote, she seems so normal and says it as a matter of fact. But I haven't wrote what that is. I guess I was relying on myself to know. So I'm guessing somewhere she says something and I'm thinking there should have been a bit more drama or emotion in this somehow, but she's like just stating a fact.
Yeah.
But for the most part, her performance is really top notch. I guess the film kind of hangs on her.
Yeah.
Well, it's all kind of from her perspective, isn't it? Like I said, Vincent Price bookends it and he ends up being like the star of the film somehow.
Yeah.
I think it's because the final moment kind of lingers with him.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he gets the important part.
Yeah. He's the one that kind of has the question about murder, I guess.
Also, this film's quite sad because the director lost his wife just about 2 weeks before the film premiered. Did you see that?
I didn't see that, no.
But this was apparently his biggest box office hit in his career.
Yeah.
Which I found surprising because he'd done the 40s Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan films.
Yeah.
And then in 1953 he did another Tarzan film.
Yeah. He'd done quite a few Tarzan.
Tarzan and the She-Devil.
Yeah, he'd done loads.
Which weren't Johnny Weissmuller or Weissmuller.
No.
Anyway, it weren't him.
Yeah.
As Tarzan. And the She-Devil weren't the She-Devil in a movie that he also does later called She-Devil.
No.
So I was quite surprised that The Fly was his biggest box office, but apparently he never got to know about it because he died a month after the premiere and 1 week before its general release.
Yeah.
So he only got it, I guess, at whatever film showing it was, some sort of festival.
Yeah.
But before it actually got a proper cinema release to the public, he died a week before that, so he never got to see the
impact.
Yeah. And that $200,000 lab equipment and the lab, I guess. Did you see about that?
No.
Okay. Part of that lab set was Emmerach, if I'm saying it right. It's a computer from a 57 Fox movie called Desk Set, which starred Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah.
Emmerach is an acronym for, this is like classic 50s sci-fi, because it's just nonsense, really, I think. Electromagnetic Memory and Research Arithmetical Calculator. They clearly just wanted some sciencey words.
Yeah.
And just stick them in an order.
That's what they used to do back then. It was kind of great. You could see it in a lot of comic books. It'd just be his...
Well, that's the reason it's like radiation, isn't it? That creates Spider-Man and Hulk and stuff, because they didn't really know what it could do to people.
Yeah,
so
like, we don't really know what radiation is. Let's just throw people under radiation. They get superpowers.
Anyway, I've shared my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
This is where films for me where it really proves what 50s films are capable of, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you go back and you go, like, it's just going to be some stupid thing, Even this, I remember going in thinking this is just going to be a guy with a fly head or whatever. Because I knew that bit, but I didn't really know the whole narrative. But the way it's told and everything, to me, it was rather not what I expected at the times.
Yeah.
So if this is like one of the first films from that decade, you then think, like, what else does this decade offer? Because, how films are, they change up every decade, don't they?
Yeah, they've all got their own...
So when you find something like this, you think, if this is one of the best, then what else is there?
Yeah.
Or if this isn't even one of the best, there must be better out there as well. So you just kind of have to look through a lot of other films from each decade. And I said this for me is pretty... Suddenly I'm forgetting other films from the 50s, but this for me is probably like the best film of the 50s.
I've wrote it's my favourite Vincent Price movie.
Yeah.
Although I don't think I've seen as many Vincent Price movies as are probably out there.
No, you haven't, because I haven't. And I know you've seen a lot.
I think a lot of my film cut-off is... I don't think I've seen much pre-70s.
Yeah.
And I could definitely have watched more 70s films.
Yeah, I was going to say, when it comes to like, what films are you seeing from the 60s, you just kind of sit there and go, James Bond?
Which kind of makes me want to do, maybe after this This Again season, or whatever you want to call it, we're doing with these remakes.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to maybe look at some 50B movies, like them. And
yeah, I know what we have discussed, and I think we might go with that, to be fair.
Because there's some great B movies from the 50s, because this was like the era of the B movie, really, the 50s.
This really popularised them as well,
Well, this was the one that was more mainstream.
Yeah, this is one that really said, no, they can be pretty good.
Because, I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, the film's success, combined with that of Warner Brothers' 53 3D movie House of Wax,
nice,
and William Castle's film The Tingler, if I dare ask what that's about, apparently helped propel actor Vincent Price into becoming Hollywood's king of horror, and making him popular enough that he was given above-the-title billing in several low-budget Roger Corman-directed adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe stories in the early 60s, all of which made a profit.
Yeah.
And then we've got Robert L. Lippert, if I'm saying his surname right, the film's uncredited producer, profited from its success. His company Regal Films typically provided 20th Century Fox with low-budget, black and white Regal Scope films for the bottom half of double features, because double features were quite big back then.
Yeah.
I think we should bring the double feature back.
Yep.
Or at least start showing a short film by an up-and-comer with a film before the film.
The double feature, Tarantino and Rodriguez tried to bring that back.
And a lot of cinemas split it.
Yeah.
They were definitely split over here.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, for the bottom half of double bill features. However, this film, produced by Regal, had a much larger budget, was in colour, and became the top half of a double bill. The bottom half featured Regal's low-budget black and white film Space Master X7. because this and the 2 Fly sequels to this that we'll be discussing next week, spoilers, they were all double bills.
Yep.
But like I said about the lab set being from a 57 film, one of the sound effects in this film for the disintegrator integrator, the teleporter, is the bass guitars played backwards effect used for the Martians' heat rays in the 53 film War of the Worlds.
Yep.
And the sound effect by the teleporter is the same one as when the prototype time machine disappears in the 60s, the time machine.
Yep.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like the fact that this B movie was that good, they were like, actually, this is the main of the 2 films. I think it's weird that as well, that they pair 2 films together and go like, one's the not so good one. You know, it seems a bit...
I know what you mean. But which one do they play first? Is it like a main event thing last, or is it...
That's what I was supposed to look up and didn't, to be honest.
Yeah, because to me it's like, you sit through this, I hope you enjoy it, but the real thing is to come. You know what I mean?
I would play the main one last, so they have to watch the lesser one.
Stuff like that.
I'll see if I can just do a thing. Apparently it's changed because it used to be a main film, followed by various shorts after.
Right.
And that's where your concept of trailers come from, because they play after.
Yeah.
Because the trailers used to play after the main film.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to find out which would be first. I'm guessing your main feature's the first one from that, and then the B movie is B because it's second. That's what I would guess. In the typical 30s double bill, the screening began with a variety programme consisting of trailers, a newsreel, a cartoon and/or short film preceding a low-budget second feature, the B movie, followed by a short interlude, finally the high-budget main feature, the A movie. Oh, right, okay, so I'm wrong. The A movie's the second one. So yeah, you have to sit through the B movie to get to the A.
I thought you would, because that's how it kind of is when you're building up to a main event thing. It'd be weird to put the main event first.
They say the bottom half of Regal's low budget. So the bottom half must be the first one then, and the top half second.
Right.
Which is weird. I would use that backwards. I would say the top one's the one that you get into first. If you look at it like a glass of fluid, the top you'd have to get to get to the bottom. I don't know. But this kind of leads into next week's episode. But Vincent Price thought it was illogical and silly that this film was shot in colour, but its sequels were shot in black and white. Price remarked that he loves black and white pictures, but this was an error in continuity and judgment. I agree with that strongly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they actually bring him back for, well, you'll find out next week if you tune in again to listen to us drone on. Do you have anything else to add about this?
I was on about how great it is for a 50s film and whatnot, and I think that does come from the writer James Clavell.
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming you've seen. He wrote the original Shogun, the novel.
Yeah.
And he did The Great Escape as well.
But The Fly is his first writing credit.
Yeah.
What a start.
Exactly.
And I don't think we said it, but the short story it's based on by George Langeland was originally published in June of 57 in Playboy magazine.
We've had another one.
I was going to say, we've had something else come from something
Playboy.
and I can't think what now.
No. It'll be in there somewhere, but I've got pages to go through and I don't want
It's not like you can just search a word and it finds the page for you either, is it?
No. I wish I did, though.
The Box from 2009, based on an original story by Richard Matheson called Button Button.
If you don't watch the film, or you don't want to, I highly recommend you check out the short story.
Yeah.
It's a good little piece. Like I said, 9 pages, I think it was. And I guess if you really, really want to, you could buy a vintage Playboy from the 70s that has it in. But I don't know what issue or month it came out. I know there's some vintage Playboy collectors out there.
Right.
Something I do like about this that I do think I have to mention now, because it'll kind of be repeated again for the next one.
Yeah.
Because Andre and Helen, they go to an opera, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. The ballet footage scene in this film on the one night Andre and Helen go out to celebrate was originally shot as test footage when the CinemaScope process was still in development. This same footage also appears in several other 20th century Fox films of the 50s, along with An Affair to Remember, which had been released that previous year.
Yeah.
I find that pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good. They don't really reuse a lot of stuff now.
No, it's not quite the same. But I think this is where the term stock footage comes from.
Yeah.
You know, there's like a load of clips. And...
Yeah, we don't really do stock footage much anymore.
I bet there's more than we realise.
I know a lot of like cityscape stuff, especially in TV, that's usually
stock.
Yeah. But I know they seem to like to use CG and stuff like that now as well. In film, anyway.
Also, I mentioned about Vincent Price having the great moment at the end, and I think it's a great moment because of the line. I won't spoil it for those that haven't seen it. But there's the famous scene at the end with their help me, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil why or where that comes from.
Right.
I just find it funny that this was on the trivia. That scene was not repeated in the 86 remake.
It should have been.
Which brings us nicely on to The Fly, 1986.
Human teleportation, molecular decimation, breakdown, and reformation is inherently purging.
On a budget of 16 million, grossing $60,629,160. The synopsis reads, as IMDb has it, a brilliant but eccentric scientist begins to transform into a giant man-fly hybrid after one of his experiments goes horribly wrong. Written and directed by David Cronenberg, co-written by Charles Edward Progue, based on the story by George Langeland, with a cast of Stronger Than a Baboon Jeff Goldblum as Seth Brundle, Gina Davis as Veronica Quaife, John Getz as Stathis Borans, David Cronenberg as a gynecologist, lovely little cameo from him, and Typhoon as Baboon, a literal creature baboon. Do you want to start us off with your thoughts, etc.?
Again, as I think I've said every week on this, a solid remake.
Yeah, this is one of my all-time favourite films. I absolutely adore this film so much.
Like, for me, I think this is on par with the original.
I kind of say it's one of them that outdoes the original. Like, the original is great, this is greater.
But I think they're the same. But I think this is, well, definitely a great update to it.
Yeah, definitely.
But due to it being based on a short story, like, yeah, it's a great update. But if it was just a film, I'd be like, yeah. But the fact it's not an adaptation of the short story, if you know what I mean.
Well, it is.
No, this is just an updated version of the story on film. I wouldn't really say it's an adaptation of that short story. It's more of just an updated version of the movie.
It's also just an updated version of that short story.
I can't really explain what I mean exactly, but for me, this is too far removed from the short story.
Why?
Because all it has in common is the teleporter and fly. That is pretty much it. It takes its basis from the short story.
Because it's like no one investigated a murder kind of thing.
They don't readapt the short story.
Okay.
This readapt.
I think the way they've done it by adding the, I guess, love triangle, if you want to call it a love triangle.
This one for me focuses more on the fly itself.
See, I don't. I think this focuses more on the human element.
No, I mean, it focuses on more of the transition and the
actual
the fly,
change, the metamorphosis
than
kind
it
of
does.
thing. Yeah. Okay.
It makes that the main feature of the film for me. As originally, that wasn't really the point of the story.
I also like the fact, though, in this, they make the character of Veronica a journalist.
Yeah.
I find that a very efficient way to get through exposition and set up the characters. Like, a very good way of being concise and making use of time to progress the story in a good way without having to explain things in all this weird sciencey dialogue from Jeff Goldblum just for the sake of it being there. It gave purpose to him having to explain it to her, I guess, with her being a journalist.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great way of introducing him and her characters to each other and to the audience.
Yeah.
But I also really like the special effects in this film.
Yeah, they are great.
They've always impressed me, and I think they still hold up very well now.
Yeah, to link back to one of our earlier episodes, I'm assuming you saw Rob Bottin apparently submitted some designs for this.
Okay.
Rob Bottin's the guy who did The Thing.
Yeah. I think The Blob and The Thing have the same... If they're not the same creators, they had a similar way of doing the effect.
I think it's more that.
I forgot what the creator of this calls it, the bladder or something.
Yeah. So I'm a bit curious of what that would look like.
Yeah.
And then Chris Wallace did Gremlins. Anyway.
Yeah.
And he could have done Gremlins 2 or this. And he chose this because of the shorter time frame. He thought it would be more of a challenge.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a great approach to look at it.
That, and I think Gremlins, it was more of the same.
Yeah.
Which I think, if you're a creative, less interesting.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Which is probably what he meant by a challenge as well. It's something new, isn't it?
Yeah. When I was looking this up, though, for me, the best effect in this film wasn't anything to do with what the fly looked like.
Oh, I think I know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Is it during his transformation and he's crawling?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was amazed by that.
Because they set up this Ferris wheel-like set
I'm
of
guessing
his apartment so they could rotate it.
I'm guessing it's similar to how they do The Room in The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Or how Nolan did the hallway thing
Maybe.
in Inception. And Space 2001 as well.
Yeah. But Mark Owen, on the set, he had to make sure the lights and, and mirrors and things like this were
he had to use mirrors and lighting to get the same.
Yeah.
So
it looked natural.
Yeah. It's a really good shot as well in the film. When we watched it the other night for this, I was thinking, I wonder how they've done that.
I thought it was a lot simpler than it was, but reading how they did it, I was like, this is actually more complex than I realised.
It's the fact it looks simple in frame.
Yeah, I was quite amazed by it.
Yeah.
But then I was a bit miffed because I realised this was Irwin's last movie with Cronenberg. They'd worked together, right, and then Irwin, on Cronenberg's next film, he declined because he was attached to The Blob and said that he wouldn't ditch a Cronenberg movie to work on someone else's, and that just ended their partnership together, which I thought was a bit
sad.
Yeah.
Because he'd done Dead Ringers and stuff, hadn't he?
He hadn't done Dead Ringers, that was the one he
I
declined.
thought Dead Ringers was before this, so he'd already done it.
No, he declined Dead Ringers
Okay.
do The Blob. Irwin's a great cinematographer.
He is, though, isn't he? Do you have anything else about your actual thoughts on this film?
I think Goldblum's great in this.
He is. It's my favourite Goldblum movie.
It's mine as well. This is probably the reason I actually liked Goldblum.
It definitely is for me.
He's one of them actors where for some reason I always knew he was as a kid.
Yeah.
And then in my teens I saw this, and this was like the definitive Jeff Goldblum movie. But overall I never really knew.
I've never seen him be better than what he is in this.
No.
Like, he's good in pretty much everything I've seen him in, but
Yeah.
I've never seen him better than what he is in this.
No.
As for my thoughts on this film, I've wrote, his computer knows a lot.
Oh yeah. His computer's like modern day AI. Isn't it?
It seems that way, yeah.
Like, they really got that nailed down to a T, I think. To me, it's like, hang on, he's advanced in such technology.
There's also the part where once he's changed...
Couldn't he have just made money off of that AI system he'd got?
You'd have thought
instead?
so, wouldn't you?
That alone would have been worth millions back then, right?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of worth a lot now. And he's like, I'm going to try and build a teleporter because I get travel sick.
Yeah. But there's the part where he starts to change. The metamorphosis has kind of taken place, and Veronica comes in to see him, and he's dressed different.
Yeah.
Where does that shirt come from? Because we see his wardrobe prior to that, and he has 5 of the same of everything, apparently inspired by Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because his character in Jurassic Park apparently only wears black and grey because it's easy to choose.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a funny little crossover. But that's apparently from the novel as well by is it Crichton?
Yeah.
But yeah, where does that shirt come from? But also when he starts to change, that first time you see him, there's a real fragility in him, and it's kind of sad, I think.
Yeah.
You know, he's got the like crutches to walk with at one point.
Yeah.
I find that a great scene.
Yeah.
Then a bit later, as the change starts to progress, it's pretty much like you pointed out, it's kind of Maguire's Peter Parker transformation.
Yeah.
To a point.
Yeah.
Like, it parallels quite well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I feel a bit sick and I'm ill, and then all of a sudden, this is the best shape I've ever been in. I'm going to break some guy's wrist. I also wrote, though, that nightmare scene is awesome, which is where the Cronenberg cameo takes place.
Yeah.
It's such a great scene, and I think that's the reason they wanted to make a sequel to this one in the first place.
Yeah.
Because one of the original endings that kind of sets up a sequel, and then how the sequel goes, it all plays off this nightmare.
Yeah.
Which is a phenomenal scene, I think. It just adds to that kind of human horror to the film that's happening.
Yeah.
And apparently, I don't know where they've got the information from, it was in the trivia. The transformation takes place over 4 weeks and 6 days. Yeah, I don't know where they've got that timescale from.
They're really paying attention.
But did you know Cronenberg originally turned this down?
Yeah, he was going to
Because he was going to be doing Total Recall.
Yeah.
For Dino De Laurentiis.
Yeah, pretty interesting what his Total Recall would have been like.
Yeah, because also Tim Burton was going to be a director on The Fly, apparently.
Yeah,
at one
and
point.
then I was also thinking, I'd love to have seen what The Fly would have been by Tim Burton.
Yeah, because apparently also Michael Keaton was a contender to be Seth in this.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a lot of contenders to have been Seth in this.
Michael Keaton would have been my other favourite to have seen in this.
Okay, I'm not sure if you've seen all the names then.
I did have.
Because...
He was the one I really liked.
Yeah, Michael Keaton was offered the role, but declined. Robert De Niro, John Travolta and Willem Dafoe were considered.
Oh, Willem Dafoe was my other favourite as
Yeah.
well. And Robert De Niro, just out of curiosity, because I can't imagine him doing a film like this.
Yeah, same with John Travolta for me as well.
John Travolta, I could kind of see it, but it just would have felt like a B movie with John Travolta.
Mel Gibson turned this down.
Yeah, I couldn't see that.
I can't see that.
He did Lethal Weapon instead.
John Lithgow apparently auditioned. That has me a little curious.
He's a great actor.
Because he's kind of fly-like when he's in Buckaroo Banzai, isn't he?
I guess.
He's got them sort of like weird ticks to him, hasn't he?
I just like the fact it was cast in Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah. James Woods turned down the role to do Oliver Stone's Salvador in '86.
Yeah.
Richard Dreyfuss turned down the role.
Yeah.
Linda Hamilton was apparently Cronenberg's first choice to be Veronica.
Yeah, I'd like to see that one.
But she found the script too disturbing.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It was the nightmare sequence
it was the
that you
nightmare
mentioned
sequence,
that really put her off.
And Jennifer Jason Leigh and Laura Dern were considered for the role.
Yeah, I think they had the right one.
Yeah, but just an incredible film in general. Like, it really is.
The cast make it.
Yeah, the cast make it. It looks great.
Oh, yeah.
the effects really add to that kind of that realistic element that this film's got.
Yeah.
You kind of buy into it that it's happening to him.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great way of doing it.
Yeah.
But when Cronenberg signed to this, the script was already there from, what did I say his name was?
Charles Edward Pogue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he changed a lot of what Pogue had, but he said he wouldn't have been able to have done it without working from Pogue's script, and it was only fair to keep him credited, which I thought was a very nice thing to do, and I think more people should do that.
Yeah.
Because I know it happens a lot where writers' names get taken off from films when they originally had the first drafts or second drafts, and they clearly put a lot of the work in to get it done.
Yeah.
That's one thing I liked about Air the other year with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. They chose to keep the original guy's name on it, even though it got rewrites.
That's a great film, man.
Yeah, I think so. But when David Cronenberg did agree to direct this, it was on the condition that he was allowed to work with his regular group of collaborators, including his editor, Ronald Sanders, production designer Carol Spear, and, as you already mentioned, Mark Irwin, and his composer, Howard Shore, more famous for doing Lord of the Rings, I guess, now.
Yeah, did Lord of the Rings, like you said, other Cronenberg movies. He's known for doing David Fincher films, like Seven, and he does one of my favourite films, The Cell.
Yeah.
Just had to get that in there. He's a great composer.
Something I didn't know about Cronenberg films, he often names his protagonists after motorsport races and so on.
Yeah.
Seth Brundle's named after the racing driver Martin Brundle.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty good because that kind of links to the next one.
I'm assuming that's why he's called Martin in the next one.
Yeah.
But I thought it was another reason, which we'll probably get into when we record that.
Yeah.
Also, in 4 of the 5 Fly films, that's right, there's 5 of these.
Yeah.
The next 3 will be next week.
Yeah.
The 58 one, the 58 sequel, this one, and this one's sequel. The laboratory is accessed by a large sliding metal door.
Yeah.
Cronenberg obviously kept that motif for this, and then that was kept for the sequel.
Yeah.
Just an odd bit of fact.
Yeah, you mentioned about the motor racing, where they get names from and whatnot, but the telepod's design came from Cronenberg's vintage Ducati motorcycle.
All right, that's cool.
I thought that was
This is the first piece of trivia for this film I read, though, and I absolutely loved it.
I think I know what this is because I wrote it down instantly.
Yeah, go on.
Was it about Vincent Price?
Yeah.
Getting a letter from Jeff Goldblum that says, I hope you like it as much as I liked yours.
Yeah.
Price, it was a great letter, but he watched the film, he said it was wonderful, right up to a certain point, it went a little too far.
Yeah. Bless him.
For the time, I think they're about the same.
What, pushing
The
what
boundaries,
audiences are used to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think for the 50s, that Flyheads...
But I think it still holds up quite well now.
Yeah. I think for the 50s, though, if that's the first thing you see like that, that is pretty horrifying. Now it's funny.
Also, Mel Brooks is a producer on this, but he didn't want his name there.
Yeah.
Because he wanted it to be taken serious. I forgot what other film he produces that isn't a comedy.
He'd done The Elephant Man.
Yes.
He produced The Elephant Man.
Which is a great film in itself. David Lynch.
Yeah, that didn't get...
Rest in peace.
Yeah, that didn't get an award for effects.
It weren't out at the time, if I'm right.
And this one did get an award for effects.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can see why, because they're great
Yeah, in fact, I have a bit of interesting trivia about the effects.
So you should, there's a lot of it.
The first name mentioned in the end credits is Chris Wallace, Inc., which was his company for The Fly 2 and Gremlins.
Yeah.
He'd worked on Star Wars, Dragon Slayer, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
He'd worked on that as well.
Yeah.
Virtuosity, which is 90s, and he'd done the original Scanners.
Yeah.
For his creating and designing of the Brundle fly makeup. After a screening, the audience cheered up on seeing the first credit. Producer Stuart Cornfield apparently turned and said to Wallace, "You're getting the Oscar." Cornfield's prediction came true when Wallace did in fact win the Academy Award for Best Makeup for this film.
Yeah.
Apparently it was the only nomination the film was awarded.
Yeah.
I think it's worthy of that achievement. I'm not sure what other films came out that year, but they could not have been better than that, surely. They still hold up so well now.
Aliens.
Was Aliens same year?
86.
Ah, right, okay. This is better than Aliens.
For effects?
Yeah.
You're
getting a lot more out of it, and variation and stuff, Once you kind of nail that alien design and the models, it's kind of done. I don't know, I maybe been a bit derogatory on it, but with that, but...
I love Aliens.
Yeah.
One of my favourite bits of trivia about this was a quote from Cronenberg.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was on about the shot from the original Fly, where
the kaleidoscopic.
You get it from the Fly's perspective, and it's all the made up little images of her.
I've got that.
Yeah, and he just said, "We all know that insects have facets, unlike human eyes. Many facets, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And then he just kind of went on to go on about how each of those facets would replicate a different piece of the whole picture, not the whole picture itself.
Yeah.
It just really made me laugh because I think that was
Yeah, but Cronenberg actually has quite a fascination with insects, if I'm right.
probably.
That's why there's like the stuff about politics in there and stuff.
I liked a lot of what he had to say about
Yeah,
it.
I find Cronenberg quite interesting.
Yeah.
Apparently so does Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah. What did he say?
After watching some of his early films, director Martin Scorsese asked to meet David Cronenberg. Upon meeting him, Scorsese said he looked like a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. This inspired Cronenberg to give himself a cameo as a doctor.
Yeah.
Although I feel that gets countered with this bit of trivia about his cameo as the gynecologist. Cronenberg mentions he rarely does cameos in his own films. He would prefer to hire actors for all the roles in his films. However, Gina Davis asked him to play this part as she felt more comfortable with the director being in the scene with her.
Yeah.
It also took nearly 5 hours to apply the most extensive makeup stages to Jeff Goldblum, which I don't find the least bit surprising
No.
due to what I've heard other actors say for makeup and so on.
Yeah. The amount of hours some people have sat in the makeup chair.
I was right. I've got it here about Cronenberg and insects.
Yeah.
The insect politics speech was something that David Cronenberg came up with from his days as an entomologist, which I think is the study of insects. He was fascinated by insect societies, the division of labour and the caste structure therein, yet they are very much not human. Also, the line, "I'm saying I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man and loved it, but now that dream is over, and the insect is awake," is a reference to author, I'm probably butchering this name, Zangazi's famous Butterfly Dream story. It's also the reference to Franz Kafka's famous short story, The Metamorphosis, which is something I've been wanting to read for ages from Kafka, and more Kafka books in general, because he's supposed to be a really good writer. Another quote Seth says is, "Drink deep or taste not the plasma spring," is apparently a reference to the famous quote from Alexander Pope's An Essay on Criticism.
Yeah.
The full quote is, "A little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deep, taste not the pear spring. Their shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, and drinking largely sobers us again," which I thought was quite a cool quote.
Speaking of quotes, be afraid. Be very afraid.
Oh, yeah.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Comes from this film.
Comes from Mel Brooks.
Well, yeah.
He said it before they started filming, I think, and they liked it.
And Cronenberg liked it.
And then I think it's the tagline on the poster, or it was used in a teaser footage, and Cronenberg really liked it, and they actually then went and put it in the film. I'm not sure now. I've seen a couple of different stories.
You're thinking of the Fly title card.
Oh,
That's what Cronenberg
yes, that was in the teaser. How it like flutters in.
Yeah, he liked that and then insisted that be how he'd do it in the film.
Yeah. But yeah, that be afraid, be very afraid. I'd heard for years before ever watching The Fly.
Yeah.
And I just assumed it was something as old as horror cinema kind of thing, or even books, like horror books. I imagined it would be, and it just seems weird that it's became so popularised and stems from this film.
I'm trying to think what Mel Brooks said it about originally. Was it just about performing on stage or something like that?
Oh yeah, I think you're right.
I can't remember what it was exactly.
About like stage fright, kind of like your anxiety, you kind of want that.
Yeah.
Cronenberg admitted to being personally frightened by the baboons used in this film, citing their strength, intelligence, and unpredictable wild nature. However, he noted that Jeff Goldblum's tall, muscular stature and pre-film training resulted in the baboons behaving affectionately and deferentially towards him, which made filming those scenes surprisingly easy. This was in contrast to other productions such as The Omen, which experienced difficulties with baboons. Even so, the baboon named Typhoon was a wild animal, not an actor. Visual effects supervisor Hoyt Yeaman recalled an incident where Typhoon, startled by the flashing lights, broke a door. I think that was to the one of the pods for teleportation. Yeah. Cronenberg emphasized the baboon's volatility, stating that Goldblum's greater size and strength were key to managing the animal and ensuring the crew's safety. I've also got that the scene where Seth and Ronnie are having coffee at the restaurant and Seth is talking endlessly was only half scripted when production began. The remainder was written the night before the scene was going to be filmed, as Jeff Goldblum felt that he could add more to the character. I'd also read somewhere that he had lived it and extended it to more than what was written, so that's two kind of contrasting things there. But to me, from just that, it sounds like Jeff Goldblum is a pretty pivotal part of getting this film finished.
Yeah.
Because also that is really Jeff Goldblum playing the piano early on in the film when he introduces himself to Gina Davis's character, Veronica.
Yeah.
It was also his idea for the character wanting to be like Cary Grant in the Philadelphia Story from 1940. Goldblum now plays the piano in his own jazz band, the Mildred Snitzer Orchestra.
Yeah.
Yeah, just pretty cool. I thought that was. Also, there's the bar scene once his metamorphosis has started and he's like stronger now. And whatnot. He does the arm wrestle, doesn't he, and snaps the guy's arm.
Yeah.
That was kind of a last minute change of effects.
Yeah.
They'd saved it till last, and then only had like a few days before filming that they realised they had to come and do it. But the guy that he snaps the arm of, have you seen who he is?
He was a boxer.
Canadian heavyweight boxer. Apparently he'd fought Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, and he's famous for never being knocked off of his feet during his career.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good going. He was called George Chuvalo. Or Chavelo.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. I found what you mentioned about Chris Wallace having the meeting prior to production. He said they could do this film or Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Yeah.
Which was 1990, so that's quite a bit after this, really.
Yeah.
He said working on this film meant they would have to come up with all the designs and begin construction in 3 months. Wallace's crew unanimously agreed that it wasn't possible in that time frame, but decided to do it anyway because it was more of a challenge. I just find that so funny.
Good on him.
Yeah, I also liked a lot of what Cronenberg had to say in collaboration with this, because it sounds like he really knows how to collaborate.
Yeah.
Cronenberg told the makeup team to think of the transformation process as a form of cancer, something Seth actually mentions in the film, and it shows. According to Chris Wallace, Rick Baker had once told him that when you would read a Cronenberg script, it was a challenge to try and figure out what effects could actually be pulled off and what effects couldn't. Wallace tells us, I don't know who the us is because I don't know where this information's come from. I don't remember any effects we didn't attempt. There was a lot cut from the film, naturally, as that's the nature of practical creature effects. There's an entire stage of the makeup that didn't make it into the movie. In fact, one of them is from the very end. I think there's a different type of brundlefly to have appeared.
Yeah.
Because there's a scene where he's supposed to have killed an old lady or a woman, like a homeless woman in an alleyway.
Yeah.
And he would have had like an extra arm sticking out the side.
Yeah.
Which I think would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
As far as creative relationships with Cronenberg, Wallace says the director is fascinating to work with. He's very intelligent, observant, and understanding. He's also challenging and supportive. He has a very clear idea of what he wants and how he sees things, so the design phase tends to go quickly. This is what I find really interesting about him. His design directions also tend to be more emotional and psychological than most directors. Most directors will describe what they want physically. They'll say it needs to be bigger, make the eyes more red, add more horns. David's descriptions were more like, it needs to be in more pain and I want to see confusion in its eyes. Yeah. I would say David's style is much fuller and covers a wider design approach than most directors. And I think that's why I quite like a lot of the effects work I've seen in Cronenberg's films.
Yeah.
Like The Fly is a perfect example of emotion is the core element of this film.
Yeah.
And that human element of the emotion as well.
Yeah.
I think it's what makes it stick. I think it's what helped it become more mainstream, gain a wider audience. This is something I think as well that adds to this film. Chris Wallace asked Jeff Goldblum to give physical characteristic to his performance he could easily transfer over to the end Spacebug puppet. Goldblum thought about it, then added his trademark twitches, which they could then easily add to their puppeteering. So that adds like this great continuity within the process for that end thing. And I think that's really good thinking, I think, on Wallace's part. And I don't think that's something you get now, even with CGI or motion capture. It's them little extra details that really add to a film.
Yeah. Well, now they try and get the actor to do the motion capture and bring in what he brought in anyway.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work. Sometimes it'll lose also the transformation as well, because you get too much of that human element. And I think that's why Cronenberg didn't want a man in a suit for this.
Yeah. I think it's probably better that they didn't, because it allows it to be less human, which is kind of what you want.
Yeah.
For the
a bit more insectoid.
Yeah. But being less human, it adds to that element of the transformation.
Yeah.
But several sequences were filmed but cut from the final release, including a sequence where Brundle sends a cat and a surviving baboon through the telepods, resulting in a mutated creature he beats to death with a pipe. A scene where Brundle climbs the outside of his building as an insect limb emerges from his side, and an alternate ending in which Veronica has another dream of her unborn child, this time as a baby with beautiful butterfly wings. I quite like a lot of them ideas.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about the end one with the butterfly wings.
No, that confused me.
Yeah. Where's that DNA coming from?
Yeah.
It makes you think of a weird film, though, now, where, like, for some reason, they're testing teleporters on prisoners. So you're putting, like, this most grotesque, evil person in a teleporter, and a butterfly starts to emerge, like, gets in there with him and not a fly. And then, like, he kind of becomes a nicer person as he slowly mutates into a giant human-sized butterfly. Also, the fly's vomit, when you see that, because he hacks up the vomit to dissolve his food like a fly does, was made from honey, eggs, and milk. I say add some flour and we've got a sweet pancake. And I found about Mel Brooks not wanting to be known he was a producer on the film because he thought people wouldn't take it seriously if they knew he was involved. When people did find out, he decided to make the most of it by handing out dealy boppers at the premiere. I had to look up what dealy boppers are. Do you know?
No.
It's the headbands with the antenna things on like the springs.
Right, yeah.
I thought that's a classic Mel Brooks move, isn't it? David Cronenberg was surprised when the film was seen by some critics as a cultural metaphor for AIDS, since he originally intended the film to be more general analogy for disease itself, terminal conditions like cancer, and more specifically the aging process. I've put akin to The Thing, because I think The Thing was seen as well as a metaphor for AIDS.
Yeah.
According to David Cronenberg, the basic premise of the film, two lovers, one of whom contracts a disease and the other who is forced to watch and ultimately helps the sick one commit suicide, would never have been made as a straight drama. However, as a sci-fi genre picture, the more serious dramatic tones and the realism of what the film has to say was guarded. But you have to consider how many people have given themselves their own death sentence in their bathrooms by discovering that thing in the shower or in the bathtub or in the mirror. That's where the potency of those scenes comes from, which I thought was quite interesting because the discovery is in the bathroom and so on, isn't it? He actually uses the bathroom setting in Brundle's apartment and stuff.
That's why he did it.
Yeah. And apparently Cronenberg was met with opposition when he wanted Jeff Goldblum for the lead.
Yeah.
The executive at Fox was supervising the project, felt that Goldblum was not a bankable star, and Chris Wallace felt that his face would be too difficult to work with for the makeup effects. I don't understand that. Like, a face is a face, right?
No, he asked for casting, can you get someone with narrower features or something so it's easier to fix things to or something like that.
Hasn't Goldblum got narrow features?
He said he's too broad a nose or something.
Oh, okay.
And big ears.
Right. Both, however, deferred to Cronenberg's judgment. Cronenberg himself later had reservations with Goldblum suggesting Gina Davis, his girlfriend at the time, for the other lead role, as he did not want to have her work with a real-life couple. Cronenberg was convinced after Davis's first reading that she was right for the role. Producer Stuart Cornfeld. I think I've said Cornfield throughout this whole thing, haven't I?
I'm not sure.
That's because that stupid clown movie that was advertised. Clown in the Cornfield.
Okay.
Producer Stuart Cornfeld suggested that they audition more actresses, saying that it's the script that is brilliant. Cornfeld later relented after nobody else even came close. This is the second of 3 movies that co-star Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis had done together, the others being Transylvania 6-5000 in 85 and Earth Girls Are Easy in 88.
Yeah.
A number of actors were approached and turned it down due to working in prosthetics or for whatever else, I guess. But Jeff Goldblum was not afraid at all. He, in fact, welcomed the challenge. The makeup for the last part of the film took over 5 hours to apply. I've already said that before film could begin. Gina Davis would often sing and read to him while he was having his makeup put on. Cronenberg also noted Goldblum had to learn to speak with various kinds of prosthetic teeth, and the actor had to work with a speech therapist throughout the film. So I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah.
John Getz, who plays Stathis, apparently recalls having a terrible migraine the entire time during his audition.
Yeah.
While filming Stathis' first scene, where he and Veronica discussed the tape, Cronenberg asked if he could have the headache again. This is why Getz has his fingers on his head throughout much of the scene, especially during the line, "He's conning you."
Yeah.
I just thought that was quite funny.
John Getz is great in this.
Yeah. This is probably a little spoilerish. I don't know. Brundle goes through the stages of grief during his transformation. Denial. He refuses to believe anything is wrong.
Yeah.
Believing instead that he has been improved. I find that quite an interesting thing. I'd not even thought about it. Anger, he becomes short-tempered. Fear, he is afraid as he sees his body starting to deteriorate. Bargaining as he attempts to arrest the process but fusing with another life form. Yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Also, did you see this? Brian Ferry composed a song for this.
Yeah. It was supposed to play over the end credits, but Cronenberg said it don't really fit the theme of the film, so they use it in the bar scene.
Yeah, it's called Help Me.
Yeah.
Did you see this then? It's not been included in the movie's soundtrack album.
Yeah.
Which I thought seems a bit disrespectful. You liked the song.
Yeah.
You had it commissioned for the film.
Yep.
It was going to be in the end credits.
Yeah.
Fine, it's not. You found a place to use it in the film.
Yeah.
And then you don't put it on the soundtrack.
Nope.
That kind of wound me up a little.
Yeah.
And the first bar and the last bar of the music on the soundtrack is taken from the last bar of music from Puccini's tragic opera Madame Butterfly.
Yeah.
Which leads to this interesting nugget, I think. An opera in 2 acts based on this movie was produced for the stage in 2008. Cronenberg served as director. Howard Shaw composed the music, and the lyrics were written by David Henry Hwang, who Cronenberg collaborated on M. Butterfly, which is an adaptation of Madame Butterfly in 1993.
Yeah.
The exact reason why Seth Brundle's head becomes so enlarged and misshapen towards the end of his transformation was that 2 large compound fly eyes were to be revealed on the top of his head back when Seth was going to turn into more of a fly monster than a fly-human fusion. Apparently, if you look closely, especially in shots that show the back of Seth's head, you can see the circular outlines of the fly's eyes.
Yeah.
Also, in 1990s, Gina Davis was reportedly involved with an alternate sequel to The Fly to be directed by her then-husband, this is what surprised me, Rennie Harlin, titled Flies.
Yeah. I'm guessing that'll have been around about the time of Long Kiss Goodnight, which I don't like that film.
I mean, I could tell you what that premise was for that film, or I can discuss that on next week's.
I've decided to save that till next week.
Okay. And as I mentioned earlier about the original Fly being a double feature and its sequels being parts of double features, I was quite pleased with this. This film eventually got double billed, and you've already mentioned the film on this episode, I think.
Yep.
It was Aliens.
Yep.
Apparently it was a release because Aliens was a month before this.
Yep, told you, both 86.
Yeah. So they eventually got a double feature. What a double feature that would be.
Yeah.
I absolutely love The Fly, and I love Aliens. So to have seen them in a double feature together in the cinema would have just been great.
Which one do you think would have been first? I think The Fly.
I'd want The Fly first. You don't want to end your night on such a downbeat ending, really, do you? The Fly's great and all, but that ending, I love The Fly. Oh, did I mention though, that there were a few endings scripted that they never went with for this film, The Fly?
Yeah.
Where Veronica and Stathis were together.
Yeah.
But all the test audiences didn't like that.
No. Cronenberg didn't like it either.
Yeah. Apparently it was hard to change the ending after a particular moment in the film.
Yeah. There's a great bit when you're going on about endings, though, because it's to do with the score. I can't remember the name of the track on the soundtrack, like the original score.
Yeah.
But it's the scene where Seth tells Veronica not to come back.
All right, okay.
And they use a bit of that music in the final act when they kill
Have
the
the showdown.
fly.
Yeah.
Producers, I think it was, they questioned
they thought
why
the music was
there was a
too
bit
big.
of music. Yeah, it was big music.
When he's just walking down the
Seth,
street.
Yeah, walking down the
And
street.
Cronenberg replies, he's heading to his desk. No.
Yeah, pretty much he's going into his destiny.
Yeah.
It's what he's there for. This is his big moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, when I've watched it, I've never thought the music was too much.
No.
And normally, I feel like I'm one of them people when the music is too much, I normally notice.
Yeah, but it's because I think you know when you're watching it, this
Yeah.
is what it's for. There's
Yeah.
a reason. There's always reason behind it, I think. And you know when there's a reason behind something in a film and when there isn't. And I think it really
The more
sucks
I
when there
hear
isn't.
about producers, I feel if you're a producer at a film company, you should have had to have gone to film school or, to learn the elements of what makes a film work. You know what I'm saying? They should know the ins and outs of a film instead of just looking at data of what they think audiences are going to want.
I'll tell you what, I really wish that producer that really wanted giant spiders were on this film, because that would have been great, wouldn't it?
It'd have made a great sequel.
I want a giant spider in this one.
It's The Fly again, but this time one guy goes in one teleporter with a fly because it's like getting out of hand and he's gone on this murder spree or something. Another guy goes like, well, I guess I have to go in the teleporter with a spider.
It'd be great, wouldn't it?
Especially in the sequel when somebody has to go in a teleporter with a bird to catch the spider.
I love the idea of it being John Getz from this one, though.
What, of having to be the spider?
Yeah, he's like, I know how to stop this.
Yeah. He's really good at this film, to be honest with you. I don't think I've seen him in anything else. I was supposed to look him up
a minute ago and I closed my internet browser.
I'll have a quick gander.
This is what he's known for me.
Yeah, same. I'll just have a quick look before we wrap up. Oh, he's in The Social Network.
Yeah, I knew I'd seen him in...
He's in Zodiac.
Ah, right. He's become a Fincher guy as well, like Howard Shaw.
He jumped ship. He was in 2 episodes of The Last of Us. He was in 4 episodes of Doom Patrol. He's Paul Trainer.
Alright.
He was in 9 episodes of Timeless. I mean, this is just me reading his IMDb now. And these are all TV shows more than films.
Yeah.
He's actually done quite a bit.
I thought it would have, to be fair. But I really like him in there.
He plays that part. Well, apparently he really wanted this role because he wanted to play that like yuppie villain type that was big in these 80s films.
I was going to say, he said that he's normally playing them sort of types anyway, but he said in this one, I get to do something different in the end.
Yeah. He plays that part so well, so I can imagine why he had a lot of yuppie roles in the 80s.
Yeah.
I don't recognise anything he's in from the 80s by name other than Blood Simple. And I'm not misspeaking. It is called Blood Simple from 1984. It's a dark comedy crime drama thriller.
I'm in.
It's from the Coen brothers, that's why I know his name.
Ah, right, yeah.
And he's the main guy in that.
Oh, nice.
Got to work with some big directors, hasn't he then?
Yeah.
Fincher, Cronenberg, Coens.
Yeah.
Anyway, is there anything else you'd like to add about this before we wrap up? Because I think I've got through everything I wanted to say.
Can't think of anything else.
It's so good though, isn't it?
It's alright.
It's alright. It's better than alright.
I say it's on par with the original.
I think it's better.
I think they're the same.
Well, I think it's better. The only
Yeah.
ones that's on par so far of the original for me is The Blob. Are the ones we've talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe My Bloody Valentine. I think they're kind of on par.
So,
As for The Thing and The Fly, they're improvements.
no, I don't think this one is an improvement. Like I said, for me, it all stems from being an adaptation of something. I know The Thing's a similar thing, but The Thing actually adapts the novel as well. So that is another adaptation as this. It's its own thing, I guess, more than an adaptation of.
Well, this we're going to do the cat and baboon thing, which I mentioned.
Yeah,
Well, that's in the novel.
yeah, I'm guessing that's why it made it into this.
Apparently, they cut it from this because apparently they were like, how can you root for this hero guy of Brundle after you see him
Yeah,
beat this cat and baboon to death?
yeah,
But it would have been a creature, right? Like a weird...
yeah, but so
I
was
guess.
he.
Yeah, not at the time, though. He was still quite human at this point when he beats the cat baboon to death with a lead pipe.
Yeah,
But seriously, though, I'm not sure this film would have worked with any of those other actors than Jeff Goldblum.
Robert De Niro.
He couldn't have done that.
No. It's so funny in my head to think of
I
Robert
know.
De Niro doing this. He's doing that usual Robert De Niro face. You know the one.
Where he, like,
So it's like,
exhales and scrumples his mouth up.
yeah,
Does like a little nod.
yeah,
And squints his eyes a bit, that one.
yeah. Does that. And Chris Wallace would be like, I have to bring that into the fly's end look. So you got a fly imitating that face. That's how I had it in my head.
I just can't believe how good this movie is and how good it holds up, nearly 40 years later?
Yeah,
What is it, 40 next year?
Yep.
That's incredible.
yeah.
But I think what does hold it together is that human element, that kind of love story that's in there with
Getz.
Veronica and Seth.
Not John Getz.
No, you can love John Getz all you want, though. No one's stopping you.
It's the highlight of this film for me now. On a rewatch, he becomes the highlight of the film every time now.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, this guy. Gets to the end, it's like, really, this
I
guy?
think it's funny, yeah, because he's kind of this douchey guy, isn't he, through like a majority of the film. It's like, oh, God, this chump.
Yeah.
And then you get to the end, it's like, go on, do it.
Not that really, because even when he's there, it's just like, yeah, Brundle, get it.
I think it's because Brundle's such a really likeable guy when we meet him.
Well, you described how the audience, so it's like, how are you supposed to feel sympathy for our
Yeah.
hero? It's like, well, by the end, he's not really the hero anymore.
I know, but
He's changed.
Yeah.
He's not himself anymore.
it's too late. You're still, you
root-
know there's Brundle in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
You root for him, and that's
Yeah.
why it's kind of a sad ending, really.
Yeah, it really works. It's one of the most emotional films I've seen.
I was going to say, you were crying. You had
I
tissues
always get
next to you.
That was for other reasons, but
Oh, God.
I like that creature at the end. It's so good.
It's not that good, bro.
Oh, I don't know. Something about a good fly, you know what I mean?
No.
Okay. No, this is one of the most emotional films that I
Are we
can
allowed
think
to
of.
talk remakes? Because they were on about doing another
Oh, yeah, I
remake
guess,
of this
yeah.
in
Because
2000.
I never included that in my thing.
No, they were on about doing it. Oh, God, what was his name? Was it Todd something? He hadn't really done anything.
I think that's why I never kept it.
Yeah, that's why I didn't keep it. But I thought I'll bring it up because I thought, because this was like around 2006 as well. or something.
Yeah, I think it was
Or
went into
2003.
I think they announced it in production at 06 and it was supposed to
03,
be
I think.
released in 09.
I think they announced it in 03 and cancelled it in 09.
I remember there were 3 years from them announcing it to when it was
Somewhat.
supposed to be
Anyway.
released.
Yeah, anyway. His idea, he was like, it's going to be bigger, it's going to have a bit more action to it.
He
something
wanted an
like-
actual fly with wings as well, didn't he?
like, it's going to be a fly
And
with
it
wings
rampages
in it.
around at the end.
Yeah, and he said it'd have like red wings, like red in the wings sort of thing. Gonna look very big, monstrous looking. I thought this sounds very 2000s.
Yeah.
It didn't sound like it had the human element. It just
No,
sounded
but-
like he wanted a giant fly
Also,
monster
if
movie.
he does that, what's the actual story there? Like, what's it trying to say? Do you know what I mean? This one and the 50s one work because there's like an actual story inside
Yeah,
the horror.
there's a lot of thought into it, but that one it just sounded like I want to do a giant fly rampaging around the
Yeah.
city, and they have to kill it, and it's like, okay, that's easy. Like they just shoot it.
It's like, watch Mothra. Pretty sure Mothra's got their own film.
They don't. They should have.
Anyway, that's it for The Fly, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of the stuff that I've got here kind of links to what a sequel could have
yeah,
been.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna save sequel talk on this
Yeah.
one for next week. Because why not? Do you want me to sign us out, or are you looking something up?
Mothra did have their own film in 1961.
Yeah, oh, they did. They deserved it.
They deserved it.
Yeah.
Okay, I disagree, but sure.
That's your opinions upsetting people again.
I'll put them back in my pocket then. Everybody betray me.
Go back to your room. I'll sign us out before you go weird.
The Fly, but with Tommy Wiseau.
I'm in.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Greg
Don't even care what bad ideas you hear, it just probably improves it.
He's Greg Sestero in like the John Getz role.
No, he's in Gina Davis's role.
Oh, that's even better. He was my best friend. Oh, I love it already. Make that The Room 2, and it's just The Fly. I'm signing this out before.
You do remember how The Room ended, right?
Yeah, that's why it works.
No, it doesn't.
It works.
How does it?
It works.
What is Tom Wiseau doing in The Room 2 after how The Room ends?
It's like one of them weird sequels where it kind of ignores the
Okay,
predecessor.
that
as
sounds
well.
like something Wiseau would do, to be honest.
Exactly. It's like The Room, that's what I mean. So it's not really... Anyway, I'm going to sign this out before we propose sequels to other movies and God knows what else. Really tangents. So that's the end of the show. Thank you for joining us this week, and if you haven't already, click like and subscribe. A glowing review would also be appreciated. We are Cynic_critique on X and Instagram, and Cynic-critique on Blue Sky. Links to those and more can be found in the show's description. And remember to join us next week as we're continuing this again with the sequels to the films we've just discussed. So, more The Fly.
So is this a game?
Get buzzing.
Yeah, I'm buzzed.
Alright, thank
Now
you.
buzz off.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Buzzing off.
Listen. Do you hear it? It's getting closer. Much closer.